Right, I've done one of these for a while. There's a picture of Eric Ten Hag, Buck and Enjoy. There's going to be no, I was going to say no fancy graphics or anything like that, but there was never any fancy graphics, so it doesn't matter. I also find it amusing, because I know a mate of mine watches these walking home from work. I just think it'd be amusing, as he's walking down the street, people to be looking over his shoulder going, why is that guy looking lovingly at that picture of that bald man? And with any luck, someone will see it, recognise Ten Hag, and be like, oh, he must be a Man United fan. But, I'm such a sad cunt. The purpose of this is mainly just to complain, just like every other fucking video, just moaning about shit. So we had the Eric Ten Hag press conference. And then, obviously, since then, a bunch of shit has happened. And at the time when he did the press conference, like, everyone was getting really excited, like, oh, that was a really good press conference. I felt he handled it really well, you know, he gave really sort of professional answers and all this kind of shit. But I don't know, ever since then, like, I do get the impression Ten Hag is maybe a bit naive. Like, I think he's walked into this thinking he's the big I am. And he's going to completely change Man United. And yet, the weeks since then, the fucking transfer window hasn't even opened yet, and we're already like mired in about 10 different fucking transfer fuck ups, basically. I just think, it's the same old Man United again, as it always is. Now, given the choice, like back when Oli got sacked, given the choice of managers that were available at the time, and it was quite slim pickings, Ten Hag would have been the one I would have picked. Because, I mean, again, mainly there wasn't that much choice. I would have liked it if we'd have done a bit more fucking research. We'd have interviewed Eddie Howe, Graham Potter, probably even Ralph Hasenhüttl, who, I know people are going to be like, what, really, Ralph Hasenhüttl? But he's, bear in mind that Southampton have got most of no money, and they got a really shit team, and yet still they actually play some decent football. That's one of the big mistakes you see in coaching, like a lot of the time. Happens in this country, happens in the United States, happens everywhere, where teams go out and hire coaches from really successful teams in really successful programs, and then when they show up and they can't produce the goods, everyone sits around going like, oh, really surprised that guy didn't work. No one ever takes a chance on like a manager who's done really well at a shit team. It's like in America, there's this big thing about you have college football and professional football. Professional teams hiring college coaches and then complaining and saying, oh, college coaches can't coach in the NFL. The trouble is they keep going out and getting college coaches from the really top college programs, which can just go out and recruit 5-star or 4-star recruits, like sweets, basically. And then they show up in the NFL where it's a much more level playing field across the board. And they can't figure out why these coaches suddenly can't win every game. And yet you have coaches that are college teams that really don't have a lot of talent, yet massively overperform their talent base. Never get a chance. And there's an element of that with Ten Hag, in that he's just come from the Dutch league. Ajax, the biggest team in the Dutch league. They don't win it every year, but they win it most years. They don't have loads of money, but they got plenty of money compared to the rest of their division. When you bear in mind that basically, if Ipswich Town, who are a League One side, if Ipswich Town had been in the Eredivisie last year, they would have had the 5th highest average attendance. If, I think it's Bradford City, had been in the Eredivisie, now bearing in mind Bradford City are a League 2 side, they would have had the 9th highest average attendance in the league. Like, the Dutch league really isn't that great, which is why only about 25% of the players that come from that division work out. That's a bit of a sketchy thing. Like, the way they calculate this thing is, some people do it based on how many minutes the player played, some people do it on whether the player stayed for more than 2 years. Sometimes they just do like a subjective survey where they ask teams, knowing what you know now, would you have made that same transfer again? So for example, knowing what we know now about Harry Maguire, hopefully no one at Man United will be like, yeah, we'd make that transfer again. And so Ten Hag comes from that that team where basically he's the top dog and there's very few people that can actually challenge him. I do wonder if he sort of walked into Manchester United thinking that, like, he's just going to come in here, make a couple of changes. Man United, like this huge club, the club that fucked over Mourinho, that fucked over people like Van Gaal, the people with bigger trophies and bigger CVs than Ten Hag. I do wonder whether he's sort of betting off more than he can chew, whether he thinks that the club's going to roll over, and they're just not. They're going to be like, yeah, no, you can have this player, but you're not having the player you want, who's really fucking expensive. And talking to players like, God, so he wants Jurrien Timber, the centre back, and everyone's absolutely, oh God, everyone's jizzing their pants because they're watching like compilation clips of Timber passing the ball. It's like, oh, it's going to be amazing. Timber's going to be amazing. We need to get Timber. Now, I've watched Timber, how many times is that? 5, 6 times? He only actually played right back for Ajax. I think it was 5 times in total throughout the whole season. I somehow contrived to watch 4 of those fucking 5 games. So I've actually seen him mostly at right back, but I have seen him do a bit at centre back. He's alright. Yeah, he can pass the ball, make some tackles. But I mean, when people are watching these comps of Timber, that you could put a compilation like that together of someone like an Eric Bailly, probably even Victor Lindelof. Like, he's not that special. Like, people are talking about him like he's going to be the next fucking Maldini, and it's just like, well, Maldini was left back, but you know, I think people are hyping Timber a bit. And one of the big problems is the fact that he's only 5'9". And I've seen a lot of people trying to sort of talk themselves out of that being an issue. Like, oh, it doesn't really matter though, because nobody plays hoofball anymore. And it's just one of those things again where it's like people seem to watch the Premier League, and then as soon as the full-time whistle goes, they just seem to forget everything they've just been watching for the 90 minutes. Like, yes, most teams now are trying to play with the ball on the floor, but there's still quite a few teams that hoof it. It's still a common tactic to press the opposition in their final third in order to try and get one of the defenders or the keeper to hoof the ball up the field. Like, teams are deliberately trying to get the opposition to hoof the ball. And there are plenty of teams that attack on that basis. Like, I remember when we played Everton during the pandemic, they basically just took Dominic Calvert-Lewin, stood him on Victor Lindelof, and just kept pumping the ball up towards him. Goal kicks, everything. And again, that's like another one of those things people forget, like goal kicks, crosses, De Bruyne picking up the ball in the half space and then clipping it into the penalty area. There's loads and loads of occasions where high balls come in the defenders have to deal with. And one of our criticisms of Aaron Wan-Bissaka has been the fact that he's so phenomenally shit in the air. I do wonder whether, like Timber, because not only he's 5'9", he's not the biggest dude, like width-wise either. Seems to get muscle off the ball fairly easily. I do wonder if he's going to have some problems. Like, to me, that looks like the kind of thing that you would target. When you're game planning, you're going to sit down and go, well, this guy's short, doesn't really jump that high, he's not really that strong. We can dominate this guy in the air. We can use this guy as a target, even if it's just excuse me, even if it's just for part of your game plan. So, for example, from goal kicks, if you're going to hoof it from goal kicks, what are we going to do? Well, we'll put our striker onto Timber, and then we'll just hoof the ball at him, because we think our guy can beat him the majority of times. But I mean, we'll see. The other thing that I do find quite funny, aside from Man United fans just convincing themselves that no one actually plays the ball through the air anymore, because that's convenient for the argument. The other thing is like, it doesn't matter that he's a bit short, because he's good on the ball, and under Ten Hag, we're going to dominate possession and play a high line. I'm just sitting there thinking, like, really? Have you asked Manchester City and Liverpool and Tottenham and Arsenal and all these other teams whether they're okay with that? Whether they're okay with just letting you dominate the ball and play a high line? Because here's the thing, I don't think all those other teams in the Premier League are just going to accept that and say, yeah, just, you go for it. You dominate the ball. You play a high line. We're not going to try and do anything about that. Bearing in mind, this is Man United. And one of our real biggest weaknesses was our ability to hold on to the ball and actually just pass it around for periods during games. Like, it's fine to say we're going to dominate the ball. Alright, you've got Timber. You've still got Harry fucking Maguire. You've got Varane. The half of the season that he's fit. You've got McTominay and Fred playing in front of them. Providing you don't bring anyone in. It depends what happens with Van der Beek. We'll go into that later. That team really isn't good on the ball. This idea is just makes me laugh how confident. It's the confidence that people say it. Where people just say, it's alright. It doesn't matter that Timber's not tall, because next year we're going to dominate the ball and play a high line anyway. So, it won't. Timber's height will never get exploited. It's just like, really? You're fucking pretty sure about that? You sound pretty confident that we're just going to get the ball and dominate it every game. Yeah, look at our games last season. We got fucking shit mixed by Brighton. But you think we're going to dominate the ball every game? It's an interesting perspective. Moving on, the Rangnick thing, because I mentioned earlier about Man United haven't changed. The Rangnick thing is a perfect example of that. He was brought in, the idea was he was going to be an interim manager, and then he was going to stay around for a couple of years and help out. That later became okay, he's going to be a consultant for 2 years, and he had more of a formal role planned. At least Man United were talking about it. Man United did what they always do. Let's talk about it, make a big deal about it, put it out in the press, and then just not do it. Oh yeah, we're going to keep him on. We're going to keep him on for 2 years as a consultant. And people have been moaning about him as a manager. Yeah, he wasn't. He was basically as shit as Ollie. But that wasn't the point. The point was that we were going to have him, and then we were going to turn him into a backroom staff role, which is what he really excels at. That's his thing, is finding players like Nkunku before they become Nkunku, before they become an £80 million player. That was the whole fucking point. And what have we done? We've got rid of him. And like he said, it's because I can't manage Austria and do the consultancy. And you blatantly know, they've told him. They blatantly know. They've said, look, we'll pay you off. As long as you just come out and say, oh yeah, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do the both things. How fucking hard is it? I used to work 6 days a week, and I managed to write a novel at the same time. You're telling me you can't be the manager of Austria, where you only need to be like the manager of Austria. You actually need to work with the team for a couple of weeks at a time. The rest of the time you're basically just doing the back office stuff. You're doing the planning, the preparation, the meetings with all the staff, going around watching players. You can't spare 2 fucking days a month to just sit on a phone call to someone. And then the thing about Man United as well is even if this idea that Ten Hag didn't want to listen to him, which, if that's true, Ten Hag's a fucking idiot. You've got this guy who's just spent months working with the team, knows all these players now, has seen all the backroom goings on at Man United. He's seen the system. And he's got a reputation for being outspoken. So he's going to tell you, if there's something you want to know, he'll tell you straight. And you barely fucking spoke to him. My understanding is they had a conversation on the phone or over Zoom or something for a couple of hours, and that was it. You should be tapping the fuck out of Rangnick. All the knowledge he has about Man United. Right, who are all the cunts? Among the playing staff, among the coaching staff, among the backroom staff. Tell me everything. Tell me all the fucking dirty secrets. But again, it just speaks to sort of this arrogance, I think, of Ten Hag, where he thinks that, he doesn't need other people's help. He doesn't need other people telling him what's going on. He's got it all sorted. He's got the master plan. Which is another thing that makes me laugh, the master plan. Because everyone's been talking about, Ten Hag's amazing. He has such a detailed plan. The whole off-season, he has it planned every day. He has all the timings planned out. So the players arrive at the facility at this time. And then they go here and do this. And then they go out the field and they spend 10 minutes doing this and 15 minutes doing that, and then they have a break for 5 minutes, and then they do this, and it's all timed out. And then the times for dinner And then times that they're going to go and sit in a meeting room and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, people are talking about this like it's revolutionary. There was a guy called Bill Walsh. He was the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. He introduced this to the 49ers back in the 1980s. This sort of planning level has been common in American professional sports going back to like the 80s and 90s. I have a book upstairs called Finding the Winning Edge. It's written by Bill Walsh. Mainly by two people that worked for him, like based off his plans, and it goes for all this, like this idea of having detailed plans for training days, and it's often referred to as like the blueprint of how to run an American football franchise. That book was written in 1994, I think, definitely like the mid 90s. Yeah, here we are, fucking like 30 years later, near enough 30 years later, and people talking about Ten Hag as being this master genius just because he plans the times of his training sessions. So you should be fucking doing that anyway. That should be the absolute minimum standard. It's been commonplace in American sports for 30, 40 fucking years. Yeah, everyone's making a big deal of it. This just shows how far behind, like, everyone makes a big deal about sports science in this country. Oh, sports science. We've got all these great sports scientists. Yeah, in strength and conditioning terms, British football is fucking miles behind American sports. Again, we're talking 3 or 4 decades behind American sports. Like most football players in the Premier League, they're good athletes by the standards of like the average UK person. Compared to international standards of what it means to be an athlete, Premier League players really aren't that athletic. You take Cristiano Ronaldo, he's one of the fastest players in the modern era. He's been clocked like running down the pitch. I think they estimated his 100 metre dash time would be about 11.5 seconds. That's a second slower than the women's 100 metre sprint world record. It's 2 seconds slower than the men's 100 metre sprint world record. There are 18-year-old kids coming out of American high schools and entering college sports who can run 10.5 second 100 metre dashes. Like, strength and conditioning in this country is fucking miles behind. But that's an argument for another day. It's just the main thing is just like, just makes me laugh how everyone's bigging up the fact that Ranić has a plan. Alright, you have a timetable. Oh, fucking congratulations. You know, good for you. I had a fucking timetable when I was at school. Like, whenever that was, 30 odd years ago. It's really not that big of a thing. What is a big thing is the fact that, like, we're making all these backroom changes at Man United, and yet still a lot of those people are still fucking lingering around. The guy that negotiated our contracts, I forget what his name is, Murta or whatever, he was supposed to be gone. Turns out he's still there doing the contracts, at least in the short run. We could have had Ranić because some sort of director of football, or, you know, a technical director or whatever, fuck, you know, teams have all these stupid names for people that basically do the same thing. But no, we let him go. We brought in some guy from the Premier League, the head of Premier League Elite Performance or whatever it was. Like a guy that doesn't actually coach, hasn't coached in years. And it's just, when you compare that to Newcastle, who've gone out and bagged Dan Ashworth to be their sporting director. So this is the guy that he basically used to hold that same role at Brighton. So this is the guy, like, everyone's talking about, oh, you know, Yves Bissouma, we should get him. And Moises Caicedo, from who's Ecuadorian, scored that wonder goal against us. Cunt. Supposedly a Man United fan. Really wanted to come to Man United, but Man United weren't interested. Cucurella, the left back. I think about Sanchez, the goalkeeper. Like, think how many players at Brighton, or that all teams like City and others are supposedly interested in making bids for. Dan Ashworth is the guy that had a big hand in going out and finding all these players. Newcastle, they sat down, they were like, right, that guy knows what he's doing, get him. Man United, we had a guy with a massive reputation in European football as being a guy who knows what he's doing when it comes to finding players and bringing them into his club. And we've just fucking told him to fuck off. because our club is full of dickheads. And it's just same sort of thing with, like, if you look at Pogba. So we're going to look at Pogba and Van der Beek just quickly. So Pogba's just been allowed to walk on a free. Why the fuck did we even sign Pogba in the first place? I think Pogba's a really good player. He's really skillful on the, incredibly skillful on the ball. Incredible vision for a pass. Played some phenomenal through balls in his time. Played this glorious one. It was against RB Leipzig in the Champions League. When was that? Was that last season or the season after? Saw Voldemort making a run up front. Played this absolutely delicious through ball to him. Voldemort shoulder barges up on Meccano off the ball and then finished it into the bottom corner. But it was a great pass from Pogba. He's a really good player, but he's an attacking player. Juventus, he used to play in a midfield three. One of the two more advanced midfielders with fucking no less a figure than like a Pirlo behind him. And sometimes he used to play on the left wing and be like a wide playmaker, receiving the ball, making runs at people coming inside. Again, that thing in England where we're like, oh, Pogba can't play left wing. He's not a winger. So fuck's sake. Left wing is a position. Winger is a role. You can play the left wing without being a winger. You don't have to be Ryan Giggs to play on the left wing. You could be a slow cunt like Mesut Ozil and play on the wing. But anyway, so we went out, we got Pogba, paid all that fucking money, brought him back. Brilliant attacking player. Homegrown at our club. So it counts towards your homegrown quota for the Premier League, counts towards your homegrown at the club quota, of which you need 4 for the European football. And then we put him as a fucking holding midfield player because, oh, well, he does that for France. Yeah, and also fucking Kante. Do we have N'Golo Kante at our club? No, we don't. Alright, perhaps we better not play Paul Pogba as a holding midfield player then. Although there could be a bit of an irony if Pogba leaves and then we do bring in Kante. But just, that's symptomatic of Man United. You bring in this player, spend a fucking fortune on a player, bring him in, and then don't play him in the main role that you've brought him in to play. Just the same shit with Donny van der Beek. I mean, that poor cunt has barely played. We've basically ruined that guy's career. I kind of feel sorry for him. He's getting paid a lot of money, so I don't feel that sorry for him, but I do feel a bit sorry for him. But he came to Man United with like all these the promise. Basically, like, I looked at, actually saw like a list of some of his games. He played like, it was like 5 games in a row, or 5 games out of 6, where it was basically like he came off the bench for like 1 minute, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 1 minute, for near enough 4 or 5 games in a row. Just an absolute fucking piss take. And hopefully he'll come back and get a role. I do think it's funny, people have been going like, oh, I don't know if Ten Hag's gonna use him. It's like, what, really? You think Ten Hag, the guy that used to play Donny van der Beek, sorry, I should say, the guy that used to play Van der Beek in the Champions League, like, trusted him for all those years, scored fucking a bunch of goals and got a bunch of assists for him. You think Van der Beek is going to come back to the club? And Ten Hag's going to walk onto that field? He's got choices. He can have Van der Beek in his midfield, or he can have McTominay in his midfield, or he can have fucking Fred in his midfield. You think he's going to pick McTominay and Fred over Van der Beek? Like, people seem absolutely convinced about this. People seem like, just the way people are talking about, like, oh, I'm not sure if he's going to want Van der Beek. It's like, fucking really? Are you serious? I think he fucking will. And if he doesn't, fuck that guy. He's a dickhead. Like, if he comes back and he's like, yeah, McTominay and Fred, this is my midfield choice over Van der Beek. Van der Beek has to earn his role in my midfield ahead of these two. Then just fuck him. Fuck that guy. You know, he's going to get everything that'll come to him if he does that. I mean, I'm not expecting that. I'm expecting him to bring Van der Beek. Just find a way to get him into the team. If we do buy fucking Frankie de Jong, this other saga that's going on. where we're spending, like you've got Barcelona who are desperate for money, yet for some reason we're adamant that we're going to pay like crazy money to get him. It's just, again, classic Man United, not understanding. You basically go in there, you say to Barcelona, look, we'll give you 45, 50 million for Van der Beek, and if you don't want it, then tough. We'll just walk away, and you can go into debt, and you can go into a receivership. It's up to you. Do you want the money or not? Do you want Van der Beek's wages Do you want De Jong's wages taken off your books or not? Doesn't bother us either way. We've got other players, we've got money, we can go elsewhere. But no, it's Man United. So we're getting stuck in like a 7-month fucking protracted negotiation. Yeah, they'll finally get the deal done in 2025. Ten Hag will have been sacked and replaced by somebody else by that point. And finally, they're like ringing Ten Hag up. We got him, we got De Jong for you. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You sacked me like 18 months ago. Oh, did we? Oh, fuck. Sorry. Well, we got De Jong. Fucking dickheads. Just a club run by dickheads. Oh, God. I said to someone ages ago that Man United were becoming the new Arsenal. And they went, they had like a fit. Talking about like, oh, we're nothing like Arsenal. It's like, yes, we are. Look at us now. We're fucking absolutely like Arsenal. We spend a lot more than Arsenal do. So I guess in that way we're not like Arsenal. But in every other respect, yeah, we've basically fallen into that sort of realm of meh, as long as we get the Champions League, as long as we get the money, we don't really care. We're not really trying to get back to the old days. As long as the club's making money, no one gives a shit. Except we're probably worse at transfers than Arsenal. Yeah, I think we are, when you think about how much money we spend. Like Arsenal didn't go out and spend £80 million on a player like Maguire. Spent a lot of money on Pepe. He turned out to be shite, but I mean, we've spent more on Sancho. I hope fucking this season Sancho comes good. You can see there's a quality player in there. You can see just like the ridiculous pace that he has. I think he might actually be faster than Marcus Rashford. You can see the technical quality, but then he just like looks around him. That was another thing while we're at it. That made me laugh because he missed the last couple of games because he had tonsillitis, I think it was. People were saying, oh, but he's got tonsillitis. He can go on holiday though, because he posted pictures of himself like abroad or something. It's like you realise there's quite a difference between being on holiday with tonsillitis and being a professional athlete trying to run around a field for 90 minutes in a high level game with tonsillitis. Those two things are not the same. Like, yes, you can go on holiday with tonsillitis. It's a bit shit, but if that's the only break you think you're going to get, I don't know how some people get really angry about it. I'm just like, it's the end of the season. If he's got tonsillitis, while he hasn't, while he's recovering from it, he's not going to be playing at his best anyway. All that's going to happen is he's going to go out there and he's going to look shit. So in other words, he'll look like the rest of the United team. I just don't have any strong feelings for or against, but it's just weird how people just don't think about these kind of things. Of course, you take an elite athlete, if they have something like tonsillitis, they're not going to be able to go out there and perform to a high level, are they? They're not going to be able to go out there and perform to an average fucking level. Just dumb fans. Dumb fans, dumb club. The Ten Hag era begins. Holy fuck. Let's hope it's better than the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer era. The next thing I'm planning to do for this shit channel that no one watches, I might look at some transfer stuff, but not all the stuff that everybody else has been doing. Because there's, you want coverage of the current transfers and all the rumours. There's fucking tons of it. There's loads of channels doing it. Doing daily videos, just talking bollocks about, oh, I've been linked to this player and linked to that. We're Man United, we're linked to fucking everyone. It wouldn't be a transfer window if we weren't linked to 1 million players. what I want to do is look at some of the players that we've not really been connected with, who I think, especially for like a bargain price, I want to try and avoid like the obvious ones, like, oh, go out and get Victor Osimhen. It's like, yeah, okay, you got 100 million quid, go and get him. It goes all your transfer budget. I want to look at some like lower cost players around the league, which may or may not include Bernd Leno. I'm not sure that's how you say his name. Is it Bernd Leno or Bird Leno? Fuck knows. 10 million euros though. Supposedly. It's about 8.5 million quid. It's not a bad goalkeeper, that. But anyway, enough of that shit. Yeah, I'll get round to that eventually. Probably. Who knows? Anyway. Bye!